Welcome friends, welcome all you lovely people. Today, July the 24th it is, and we just came out of a really great paradigm shift in the last 10 days or so. The world has really turned upside down, at least for the people in the United States of America, and we will look at this, whatever happened, in a bit of a bigger picture, and then zoom in on the new world chart, and I will, as I promised, show you how all that happened is exactly encoded in this chart, and how this particular time, Dane Rudyard, the famous astrologer of the 20th century, chose, is making so much sense, which gives that nation a Sagittarius rising and a Libra midheaven. So let's roll back a little bit to the start of this year, and the most practical start, as I said many times, is the Chinese New Year, which is the midpoint between winter solstice and spring equinox. Yes, it's not the exact mathematical midpoint, but it's the second new moon after winter solstice, which is really the one in between, and the new moon being a beginning. So that is the deep Chinese insight of thousands of years of wisdom. That's how old the Chinese culture is, to give the clearest marker of where a new energy is rolling in, which naturally is the start of that particular animal in their zodiac sign, the dragon. It is this year the wood dragon in particular, the dragon being a year of magnanimous changes usually. It's the strongest and the most mystical of the 12 characters, and in that sense always a year which stands out in many ways. Just think the last one was 2012, and the year before that was 2000, to put it a bit in perspective. So let's now look at just first the chart for that year as it was conceived in Washington DC, when the moon and the sun were exactly conjunct in the sign of Aquarius. Actually, this is, as every year, that new moon in Aquarius, the beginning of that year, is falling into a different degree in the sign Aquarius. It also changes hexagrams as we overlay them according to the to the human design system. Again, you can find the lead up where you find all that information in the description of the video underneath. This is hexagram 49, revolution, between 1852 and 2430. So revolution is the basic theme of this year. How much sense makes that if we look at the bigger picture, what happened in those last, whatever, 7 months, or not even yet? So in Washington DC, Uranus was exactly in midheaven, which is naturally the planet of Aquarius, the planet also kind of connected with the theme of revolution and change and new and unknown and surprise and innovation, and all of that getting made real in the sign Taurus, taking on form, manifestation in a tangible form. And as this would not be all, there is that 90-degree angle square aspect. Again, this is a global experience. However, as Uranus is in the exactly overhead in Washington DC on that day, the 9th of February it was, in that minute when sun and moon were perfect. So this is definitely the place, the country where this will unfold the most direct and most intense and that's what we see happening in progress. Now, before we go any further, I want to show you how this interlates with the New World chart. So, well, first of all, maybe still a few more details to this chart. The exact Chiron North Node conjunction was hinting at this would be a year of healing in a much bigger and deeper way, and naturally before healing can happen, the diagnosis has to be made, and this is really the critical part. A good diagnosis is allowing to find the right medicine, and for a good diagnosis we have to look deep into the issues which are really at hand. It is that analytical interest in finding out what is wrong and what has to be improved. So first of all, we have to really unpack the problems. That is the first step Chiron is doing, and naturally in the sign Aries. This is a pioneering energy, going in new ways, really trying out a way which has not been traveled yet. And this is true for Chiron in Aries for the whole 7-year period between 2018 and 2025. In Washington, that is at the 9th house cusp, so it is all about understanding the bigger picture, and this is the Sagittarian house. The 9th house resonates with the sign Sagittarius. That is the 9th sign. That is how astrology works, for those of you who are a bit new here. And Jupiter is the planet which rules Sagittarius. So Jupiter is in its own house, which really shows that yes, that's where the even another confirmation that is the place where this will play out most strongly. Then okay, now let's look at the overlay with the US chart. Let's go step by step, and you have to really bear with me. I will develop this. It will take a little time. So let's look at how the transits are of that moment first. So Sun and Moon were squaring Uranus, as we saw, and this is Vesta in the American chart, which is highlighted Vesta, which shows it's a spiritual endeavor. We are called by spirit to do what we are meant to do. And interesting, the transiting Vesta is on Mars, which is very prominent in the American chart to start with, in the angular 7th house. So it's get it done. And Mars is in Gemini right now again, between June the 9th and September the 4th, I guess. So this is really a window where we will see the fastest and strongest progress in this endeavor, whatever it is we're heading toward. Then Mars on this 9th of February was perfectly on Pluto. Pluto is probably the most important planet in the sense of what is going on in the bigger picture. It is that redefinition of power, Capricorn energy, and Pluto, as we know, is at that cusp of Aquarius and Capricorn for the whole year, going back into Capricorn actually for one more time between September the 1st and November 19. So this will be then probably when we have the last final dip into the deeper structures of what has to be changed and dealt with from within before the final and definite entry into the Aquarian energy, where Pluto then will be till way into the year 2040 or beyond even. So Mars here is firing up that Pluto energy, and in that sense also naturally fueling the fire on all levels, on both sides of the game. It's the intensity we feel, which is definitely coming from that country very strongly. Interesting is that the vertex and the part of fortune, vertex being the higher dimensional direction the nation is going as a whole, and it is interesting that this is aligned with the part of fortune as such, which means this is where really the resolution, the liberation, the whatever you call it, the solution of that nation's path will lead to. It is to a higher level of relating with this reality, rising up from the mundane level into the much more spiritual, advanced and deeper levels of the 8th house actually. But in the late degrees of Cancer, this is strong heart energy, and it is the transmutation of the Plutonic energy which is leading there. Then right, this one I also, okay, I guess I mentioned that one. Okay, now let's look at the midpoint chart between those two quickly, because this is another technique which is really super powerful, which gives you lots of deep insights. It's where the original energy of the nation meets with the energies which started this year. The time-space midpoint brings us to the 23rd of April 1900. Now here on the side I have the base chart of July 4, 1776. First of all, you see the ascendant in Libra, which is beautiful, which means it's about to, it's telling us that it's to find the middle ground, to unite with one another. And it so happens that this is where Juno is in the American chart, opposed by Chiron. And these are in angular houses in the 10th and the 4th. And particularly this Chiron natally in the 4th house shows that this is the big struggle of the American nation, to come together as one people and overcome all that artificial division, which is definitely fueled by all the propaganda which is out there to divide people in all kinds of different groups, black, white, red, blue, you name it, women, men, it's all the same thing. We have to come together and overcome these differences and really understand that our power is in the unison. That is really the theme of this chart, one of the big themes, and this is definitely brought into focus in this present year. Even more so that Juno in this midpoint chart here in Pisces is in a perfect square with this big alignment of Jupiter, the North Node, and Uranus. Now, you know that this is the theme of 2024 too, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which was exact in actually a couple weeks ago. You see here, you have it in the base chart too. Jupiter is approaching Uranus here. That was back in February. Meanwhile, it has passed and is already in Gemini, but it is the main conjunction of big planets of this year. So this is also here in the midpoint chart, which again is a reinforcement of the theme. Jupiter-Uranus is the excitement of expansion, of heading into a new direction. In Sagittarius, again, this is Jupiter's sign as such, the North Node here. It's very, very dynamic. And even more so opposed by Pluto here and Venus. And then you see this is very, very close to the natal ascendant, so this is a strong theme too, that Uranus on the ascendant. Yes, it's it's just making it even more intense, that theme. Let me see what is my what else I was noting down in this midpoint chart. Neptune and Chiron in opposition. This is interesting. Neptune is very difficult placed in the natal chart of the nation, which I call the New World chart, as you probably heard in my previous recording. I see this as much greater starting point than just for the American nation as such. This is really the cornerstone of a whole new era, as it is in that signing of the Declaration of Independence where a big hope has been born and manifested of a new humanity going in a new direction. It's the same themes as in the French Revolution were coined: égalité, fraternité, et liberté, which means sameness. Everybody has the same value, the same importance in that sense. There's no classes anymore. Égalité, that is, liberté is freedom, and what is the third one now? I forgot again. Anyway, you get the picture. It is great high values which are attempted to get manifested on this planet. So one thing which stands out here in this midpoint chart is the moon. At 20 degrees and 47 minutes in Aquarius. If you think back where the sun and the moon is in the base chart for the year, it's pretty much exactly the same degree. Again, making it clear that the United States of America will be the central point where this year's history will be written. And I guess there's no surprise on that, with all that is in anticipation and happening presently. The central axis of this midpoint chart, which is kind of the really the direction of where we're connected with the higher reality, with the heavens, if you want, that's the crown of that tree versus the roots. This is Australia, the asteroid of getting involved, getting our hands dirty, doing the job. And it so happens that Mercury is in the base chart very, very close to this degree, really elevating Mercury. And Mercury is the planet naturally of communication, of understanding, of perception, of thinking, of kind of putting a grid on reality and understanding, analyzing. All of those words matter. In the base, in that midpoint chart, you have Mars, Mercury, and Sedna going down into the depth of the vault of information. Again, all in the sign Aries, so it is about, on that level, to a pioneering force in the 6th house, which is service, and also it is the house of health, of understanding a problem and bringing on the resolution. Beautiful, that's trine to the North Node in Leo, which is resonating with the North Node, the part of fortune here, and this is resonating with the North Node here in the base chart. And there's this other trine, really, it's a little bit less exact, but still with Jupiter. Jupiter and these 3 planets, the part of fortune in Leo, resonating with the evolutionary direction at its core, which is Leo energy, which is sovereignty, liberty, freedom of expression, and everyone allowed to be themselves. And the downside here, and naturally the shadow of the Aquarian South Node, is that kind of making everybody dance to the same tune, kind of. I guess that would be the Aquarian shadow of having to really adapt to a group think, and that is where we are coming out of naturally. Okay, that is the base chart. I got a bit longer that intro than I wanted, but let's now loop back into where we are, and you will immediately see what is the pickup here of the thread. This was when the moon was farthest away from Earth, which happens once every month. Happened on July the 12th, when the moon was here at exactly 3 degrees Libra. July the 12th, yes, you will immediately make the connection. July the 13th is the big day we are heading toward, which we will look actually really closely at in relation to this new world chart. So just bear with me, it is a little path to get there, but I'm really building the story here. So when the moon is farthest away from Earth, this is resetting the mode, you could say. And the moon is the main link to the cosmos at large. So when the moon is at its extreme point, this is a super important moment, and is, again, like the Chinese New Year on a smaller scale, a great moment of seeing where things are heading, what is coming next, what is laid a foundation for. And this is now for Greenwich, for the whole planet. So on July 12th, Uranus was exactly overhead the 0 meridian, 000 west or east, very close aligned with Mars, and Algol, by the way, that very difficult irregular star, which lots has been written about it, and naturally what we saw on the 13th of July manifest itself was definitely had that frequency in it too, of something dark and unexpected and difficult to handle. However, as I already said, I expected it to have a positive outcome overall in the bigger picture of what the energies are, as we will get into that a little more in a minute. But overall, this was the theme. It would be explosive, it would be actually Mars-Uranus often is representing firearms and things like that, and explosions and accidents. All of that can be a theme for that whole 4-week period into around August the 10th, when the next time the moon will be at its farthest from Earth. So there were a few things happening around that time, the 12th and the 13th and the 14th of July. I already mentioned a few things. The next thing which happened was, well, actually this is first the same chart for Washington again, and why I chose to show you this is that the galactic center is here at the descendant. Whenever the galactic center shows up at an angular position, you can really almost bet on it. This will be the location where something of bigger magnitude will manifest, naturally the 7th house being where the people meet, where they interact with one another. It is the place where you meet your opponents, where you meet your friend. So no surprise here to Varda. That is a character out of the Lord of the Rings story. It's all about light. It's actually a goddess, I understand, a feminine figure. It's a small planet, but here right at the descendant. So yes, there is light which is brought into this dimension on a really unprecedented level. That is what that shows when with this little planet here at the galactic center. I guess makes sense. So anyway, the next thing which happened just a little later was the lunar nodes crossing the 10-degree Aries mark. I laid that out in my second last video more in detail. That was here when you see the lunar nodes, they go backwards. Actually, the only factor point in astrology which constantly moves backwards is the meeting of sun and moon energy, which is the evolutionary direction. That evolutionary direction has entered into Aries energy pretty much a year ago. I guess it was July the 17th, 2023. Has meanwhile covered 2/3 of its way and is now in its first section, which is double Aries. It's the first decant, as we say in astrology. So really coming into the core theme of what this means. North node, lunar north node in Aries naturally is new beginnings, and very much going for it, doing the right thing, which initiates a new path, a new trail. It's trailblazing and at its best. So with the lunar node crossing this 10-degree mark, we are getting into a much more intense Aries phase. And as this happened, while the moon was almost aligned with the nodes here between the dark moon, the black moon, which is where the moon is farthest away from Earth, and the south node, this shows that this phase will be all about facing the shadow and looking deep into what is the cause, why are things not as they should be, what are the deeper reasons, and coming to terms and finding harmony, how we can work together, all of that in Libra. Now this, as I say, happened just in the fortnight of that big event, the 13th. And what stands out, that this chart here, when that moment when the node cut over the 10-degree mark into 9:59:59 seconds, when we draw this chart for Greenwich, you have 13 degrees and 17 minutes rising in Sagittarius, which is pretty much exactly the resonance with the base chart for the United States of America. So this said that with this activation of the next level up of intensity in this Aries energy of blazing a new trail, the resonance again points towards North America, towards that nation. And if we do the mid, actually, yeah, I have it here naturally here once more, where we could go back into more detail. But what I wanna go to is this chart really, which is again the midpoint chart, and it so happens that this is now for the 9th of July 1900, between that moment when the lunar nodes change into 10 degrees, cross the 10 degrees, and the base chart of 1776, and we have the same degree rising. The moon is here. So I want to give you a few more small details here of this chart, because these matter. The moon particularly matters a lot, because if you use a different time of day for this 4th of July 1776 chart, as there are various versions around, naturally, different astrologers use different times. This one seems to give the best and most strongest results with these important moments in time, and this is one of them. So I did here a little bit of exact mathematical analysis. So okay, let me get there. Right, so the midpoint between the north node and the moon, actually Uranus and the moon, the midpoint is 1041 and the north node is 1035. So again, this shows that this is bringing that intensity of the Uranian energies, of, I would say, that renewal process really into focus. If the moon here almost exactly on the ascendant, this is again indicating that it's the people who are calling the shots now. It's the grassroots movements. And then here we have Mars and Pluto here at the descendant. That is that strong polarity we are feeling. There is a great conflict really, which is simmering, which everybody naturally is aware of. And as Mars gets closer to Pluto, this will intensify over the next few weeks here by midpoint. And it is actually interesting that is also by transit, Mars will be coming back to its natal position here at 21 to 50 in Gemini over the next few weeks. August the 14th is a real power point. That is when actually Jupiter and Mars will have their exact conjunction, I guess exactly in that degree here where Pluto is in the midpoint chart. So this is a date to mark on your calendar. Could be the high point in some sort of what is going on the next few weeks. And I will get deeper into that in probably my next recording or so. Very beautiful in this chart is the exact trine of Mercury with the moon, 1219, most exact, which would show that it is favoring the exchange of information in an enthusiastic Sagittarian way with the undertone of Leo, which is speaking up, daring to open one's mouth. That is actually something which has become increasingly difficult in the environment we're in, as we know. But this is encouraging. That beautiful trine Mercury makes to all these planets, basically the most exact to the moon. Well, let's keep going. Here we have the exact overlay of the three charts. Just quickly, I thought that was... I would like to quickly explain what you see here in front of you. Inside is the natal chart of 1776. The middle wheel is the transits of July the 12th, when the lunar node crossed that 10-degree mark. And the outer wheel is the midpoints, which lead, as we said, to July 1900. So I guess it's you have to zoom in a little bit, but there's a few things which stand out here. The midpoint central axis of the chart, the power axis, the where everything is at perfect balance and understanding, is here at the moon and the south node, and on the other side Sedna, very important. Sedna is the one which again brings information from the deep, but also often shows up when we are going through a time of deep, of digging deep, which can be challenging, as we know. So let me see what else I wanted to say about this chart before we go on. Well, let's now go to the next level. Now this is really where it gets super interesting. Now we're getting back to the green comet. I mentioned that several times in my last recordings. That green comet plays a crucial role in what we are experiencing in general in our present time. It brought in information which we urgently needed. It woke up sleeping energies and latent codes, as the channeling by Magenta Pixie made it clear. It's the green comet, the green star-seeded comet of deliverance, of the deliverance codes for humanity. That's how she phrased it. Let me see it once more, but that's how it says. Yeah. Let's see. I wrote it down once more. Okay, where did I? Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's what it says. Yeah. Here it is. Yeah, the green star-seeded comet of deliverance codes for humanity. So it's really amazing. That goes back to January 2023 when this all started. There's several episodes here, and with the comet as seen from Earth again changing directions, now going backward till December the 7th. And that happened when the moon was at 9 degrees Libra. Just going back here quickly to the previous chart, you see that same degree, 9 degrees Libra. Now 9 degrees Libra is an interesting degree as such. It's the 3 old masters which are mentioned in the Sabian symbols. Sabian symbols, for those of you who are new, this is my old copy, that is the cover page, fell off. Meanwhile, 3 old masters hanging on the wall of a special room in an art gallery. The need to return to source during a confused search for new value in a chaotic society. The key word here is finding that succession of wisdom, linking back to our ancestors and honoring that pyramid we are built upon of all our past, our ancestors, our forefathers, and nature in a most general way, building upon that and not getting naturally confused by all the talk of artificial and improving upon nature and all that, which is really very misleading. And yes, anyway, that is kind of the main intent here, to come back to nature, to come back to the source, to the wisdom which we inherit through our lineage, through thousands and millions of years of evolution. How can it be that all of a sudden all that is no more of value? That's kind of the big question we have to ask ourselves in this present time. So anyway, that turn of into its retro mode, and that comet is naturally going backward, as I say, that it's inclined more than 90 degrees towards the ecliptic, that is its regular direction, unwinding. So for Greenwich again, this is a global chart again, and you see it's an exact 90 degrees above the horizon, also 9 degrees. So the moon is super elevated here, together with the node. The node again, as I said, gets here more evaluation, more importance in this chart. Then the next one here I have lined up. This is now the event which really turned everything upside down. I saw this actually I should show you. I have it here on my phone. I guess it was a headline in a newspaper in England. I hope you can see it. The bullet hit Trump, but it killed Joe Biden. The single gunshot that changed the trajectory of the world. I thought that was very accurate. So anyway, this chart in itself is powerful. First of all, the timestamp 6/11/33, that's down to the second. Again, that is a picture I have in my phone. Let's see if I can pull it up quickly. That was one of the images. Here we go. Let's see where it's hiding. I wanted to show it to you, but I cannot see it right now. Okay, never mind. Nope. 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 No, sorry about that. But that was a source which gave the exact second of when that shot was fired. I really like the 11 and the 33. And then we have another double number here, 544, 1522. There's lots of that going on, which shows that's again, you could call it an animation we're in. Who knows, maybe that is true, where every event that happens, at least the very important ones, are already timed down to the second. Well, that's debatable, but things like that definitely make you think that way. This one, I mean, it was kind of a amazing that the turnout of this. I mean, he turned his head right in the right moment, and that made this bullet go by and just hit his ear. Otherwise, it would have gone right through his skull. Just that little motion of his head that saved his life and saved us all from another really much more dark and difficult path. Thinking of JFK and what happened in the wake of that event. And that was definitely of the same magnitude. Interesting here, that little planet AW197 at 656, which is the exact midpoint between Sun and Moon at the time, was 650 in Virgo. So this is definitely worth looking deeper into the art of war, or the ability to use the opponent's push and turn it into something positive. That's kind of the idea here, to receive, like in Aikido, the attack and then turn it over into a defeat of the attacker. And I guess that's exactly what we are seeing here. It really has backfired in a big way. What was going on really changed history, made all that come to happen, which nobody would have expected. Naturally, the Mars and Uranus here. The midpoint between the two axes of this chart, the midnight point and the descendant, is 10 degrees. And where did I write it down here? Well, I guess I have to calculate it once more. 10 degrees 33, right, 10 degrees 33, that's here. And that is the midpoint between the lunar north node and Jupiter. That's called planetary pictures, by the way, those of you who are new to this method of symmetries, reading symmetries. So these resonate in the same axis, they work together. Naturally, the perfect exact trine sextile between the lunar node and Jupiter, well, it's not that exact, but less than a degree, definitely very exact. 1028 would be the midpoint of node and Jupiter, and as I said, 1033, so it's almost exact. So then not to forget Donald Trump's Pluto is at 10 degrees 02 in Leo, completing this planetary picture with the node Jupiter at its center. Mercury was in the perfect sextile with Mr. Trump's Jupiter at 17 degrees something. So there's many things there which really show that it couldn't have succeeded. It was meant to fail. Let's see, now we get really into the interesting part of what I want to show you here. Now we're looking at the midpoint chart between the assassination attempt and that base chart of the American nation. Now it's getting really interesting and juicy. look at that first. I want to first show you the real most powerful and exact alignments. Midpoint Chiron 2012, midpoint Moon 2016, which shows this is a critical moment for sure. This is life or death. However, the Moon is already ahead of Chiron, and it is a wound, a sacred wound, as I said, which changed the history, which changed the total paradigm of what is going on. Certainly brought many people to wake up, as we could say. Then look at the ascendant 2141, and if we go back here quickly to this prior chart, the solar position at that moment when that shot was fired, 2159, the midpoint chart with the American nation 2141. So this is really outstanding, that exactness, and there's a few more of those. Then right, naturally we have that Mars at the south node here, which often expresses in some violent act. Opposing Uranus, the north node, in that midpoint chart. Then, right, the part of fortune, that is another one which moves really fast. It moves at the same pace as the ascendant, by the way, because it's a mirror point of sun, moon and ascendant. So let's look at the part of fortune, which is exactly between the moon and Hygeia. It's a little hard to see here. The moon is here at 20 something, part of fortune here at 24 something, and Hygeia here at 28 something. If we do the exact math, 2014 is the midpoint between moon and Chiron, 2813, so gives a midpoint of 2414. You see, it's 4 minutes of arc. Now, why do I think this is important? Well, it shows that he survived. Pretty much that is one of the little hints that this was not having the negative impact, because this is about health, well-being, and this is the critical injury. And with the part of fortune here exactly in between shows pretty much, yes, it is a critical injury which would have potentially happened, but it's been averted. Serendipity is there on the other side. Also interesting, and this is just something I see now, because there's also always that many things hiding. You see, 358 is the root of this midpoint chart, and you remember where the moon was farthest from Earth. It was at 3 degrees Libra, just the day prior. Yeah, let's just go back to this chart for a minute. You see here, 3 degrees Libra. That really links back to that one too, because again the apogee chart is also showing the deepest theme, the one which wants us to zoom in and see what has to be improved, where we have to put our energies in order to make things better. So this is another really interesting one here, Venus. 1433 retrograde, by the way. And that is true for a few more weeks in the midpoint chart, which translates probably for a few more months. Which I said in my last recording, it's a time of an unsettled time for sure for the next few weeks and months, all the way likely into October the 22nd, which I pointed out would be likely a turning point. If you haven't watched my last video, please do so. It gives you the exact timing of when energies will sharply change. That is one really important one, October 22nd. So anyway, 1433, what's powerful about that? This is the degree pretty much where the last new moon happened at 1423. 10 minutes prior, and Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, is at 1424 in Cancer. So that last new moon was exactly conjunct Sirius, which was a clear sign of much more wisdom and light coming into this dimension, because Sirius is the brightest star and is linked with that expansive energy of wisdom and of understanding and of enlightenment in a bigger picture. So that was very auspicious to start with. That was a great sign which would really shed light into the whole next year. And Venus by midpoint, most exactly on that place, on that date by midpoint. Yes, this is definitely bringing that to life. Okay, let's move on here to the overlay. Here you see a few things I already mentioned, and I'll point them out once more. Here you see once more the ascendant. Outside here again the midpoint chart. In the middle is the assassination chart, and in the center is the natal chart of 1776. So you see again 2159, 2141, and in a 90-degree angle with the moon here on the natal Juno Chiron axis, which I just spoke before about, which is that basic theme of bringing the whole population onto a common denominator, finding that union, which is so important, which will make all the difference. And this is just the intro into the global manifestation of all that, of everybody coming to the same denominator, understanding the same, learning about history, learning about all which had been intentionally hidden and falsified and whatnot. So this is really big. Then let's see what I have here further written down. So Okay, right. Here we have again the moon and Chiron at 20 degrees. That's here actually. In the midpoints, that very close conjunction, in a sextile aspect to the transit moon of that moment when it happened, and also naturally in a trine aspect to the natal Chiron here. Here it is, 2008, 2012. See, this is really most exact. Okay, then one other really interesting one is that black moon by transit at 1 degrees and 36 minutes in Libra. Just very little still to go to be exactly on the midheaven of the nation's chart. I guess that makes sense. I guess it was most exact on the 17th, 18th of July, around the time when really it came into the open that this was intentional, that that wasn't a lone shooter, that there was a whole organization behind that event, enabling it. That realization, that is definitely one of the manifestations of this black moon up here. Really rolling the curtains back and making things, bringing it into the open. And the black moon by transit, again, that is the place where the moon is farthest from Earth, and yes, it is the deepest pit in the ocean, the deepest trench where all the debris, the unresolved emotional stuff and such, what we do not want to look at is sedimenting, getting hidden into. And naturally, when the black moon is in a focal point, then we are meant to go and look and see and dive into the shadow and find the light within the shadow. The black moon is for 9 months in each sign, so you can think of the next 9 months. It will be here in the nation's 10th house, so that is definitely a time of lots and lots of shadows and skeletons to be unpacked and brought into the open. And last but not least, the equatorial ascendant of this midpoint chart between the assassination and the nation's birth chart, which means the global response to this event, you could say, in a way, how it was reflected. 320 in Cancer here is pretty dead on exact on the American nation's Venus. So that was lots of empathy, lots of well wishes from people all over the planet. Makes so much sense. There was definitely lots of sympathy and understanding of what's going on there and how far we've come and what's still to be accomplished. And naturally in a 90-degree perfect square to the midheaven midnight axis of the midpoint chart at 358, as well as the nation's main vertical axis, the plumb line. Anyway, I think we are seeing, and you're probably with me if you have stayed with me for that long, you're seeing the real power of this moment Rudyard had chosen as the beginning of this dream being manifested in this world. And last but not least, I want to say this is the degree of the great attractor. That is the spot where all the many galaxies of our many thousands of light years neighborhood are converging toward. So this is a great point of attraction, of focus. That's part of the reason why the American nation is having that reputation all over the globe of being super important in terms of finding direction into the future. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that, even though it was a little technical, but that was my intention, to give a clear reading why I consider this to be such an important chart and why it works and how it works. Thank you for being here. Again, find more on information underneath. Also, if you would like to support me, that is wonderful. That is very appreciated. Helps me doing what I'm doing. And also, if you want to leave a comment, you're always very welcome. I enjoy reading your comments. And well, have a lovely rest of the month and enjoy this intense time. It's once in a lifetime experience. Thank you.